Ms. Lewis, if you would please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name's Scarlett Lewis, and I am first and foremost the mom of two boys, Jesse and his surviving brother, and I'm the founder.
Scarlett Lewis was testifying in a Texas courtroom in August 2022. Lewis is the mother of Jesse Lewis, one of the 20 children killed in the Sandy Hook school shooting.
Tell us more about Jesse. How was his personality?
He was very bold. He was very old for his age.
Lewis was in court that day because she and a group of parents had brought a defamation lawsuit against radio host and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. Jones is the owner of the popular website Infowars, and he hosts a 4-hour internet talk show 6 times a week.
When they go to full martial law, there's a very good chance they're going to go ahead and kill Trump. And I would predict the same day they kill Trump, they'll probably kill Senator Paul or try.
Jones has spent his career spreading a lot of different false conspiracy theories.
They'll try to kill me, and they'll go ahead because they know Joe's...
Debunked theories about shadowy government cabals and chemicals in drinking water. One of the theories Jones repeated on his show, that the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting was a hoax, orchestrated by the government as an excuse to crack down on guns. That lie led to real-life pain. The parents of the Sandy Hook victims said they received hate mail, death threats, and constant harassment from people who believed their grief was made up. So a group of parents sued Jones for defamation. At one point, when Scarlett Lewis was testifying in court, she looked across the room at Jones and addressed him directly.
I wanted to tell you to your face, because I wanted you to know that I am a mother first and foremost, and I know that you're a father, and my son existed. Jesse was real. I am a real mom. There's nothing out there, nothing. There's records of Jesse's birth, of me. I mean, I have a history, and there's nothing that you could have found because it doesn't exist, that I'm deep state. It's just not true. I know you know that. That's the problem. I know you know that. And you keep saying it. You keep saying it. Why? Why? For money?
This defamation case, along with a similar case in Connecticut, resulted in a combined $1.5 billion judgment against Jones. Facing that massive bill, Jones had to file for bankruptcy. And just a few weeks ago, a court forced Jones to liquidate some of his personal assets.
So it's almost like his media empire is on death row, and it got a temporary stay of execution.
Will Sommer is a media reporter for The Post. He says that this judgment could force Jones to shutter Infowars.
Alex Jones really is sort of the face of conspiracy theories in the United States. And so the idea that he's going to face some consequences for his actions, I think, speaks not just for him and what happens in the future of Infowars, but for the future of misinformation and the people who promote it and make money from it in general.
From the newsroom of The Washington Post, this is Post Reports. I'm Elahe Izadi. It's Monday, June 24th. Today, the fall of Alex Jones and Infowars, and this remarkable moment of accountability for purveyors of misinformation. Well, do you remember the first time that Alex Jones came onto your radar? Do you remember when you first heard of him or listened to him?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I grew up as a sort of a big consumer of conservative media in Texas, which is also where Infowars is based.
Is that where you're from?
Yes, from Houston. And I just inhaled talk radio. And yet there was this guy in Texas, Alex Jones, who seemed a little bit, I should say a little bit, a lot more fringier than the average talk radio host. You know, a guy talking about sort of imminent, communist apocalypse, this kind of stuff.
Like he was an outlier from what you were hearing.
Exactly. Like people may think of people like Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh on talk radio. And then you have people who are talking about like UFOs and plots to take over the country in a much more visceral way. And Alex Jones was sort of in that weird little world. I mean, he was seen for a while as sort of a funny but relatively harmless Austin personality. But in the Obama era, and particularly in the Trump era, he gained this real prominence. And people started saying like, wait, what are the harms of what he's doing here?
Can you tell me a little bit more about where Alex Jones fits into the broader misinformation landscape and, how did he become so prominent in it? And what are some of the conspiracy theories, which we should say are false right now, that he became most known for?
Sure. So he is a guy who he grew up in Texas. His father was very steeped in sort of far-right ideology. And so that's the environment that Alex Jones grew up in, kind of steeped in these conspiracy theories already about communist takeover, this kind of stuff. And then he started on community access TV, and from there built out this Infowars radio and ultimately online empire. But in terms of the ideas he's promoted, I mean, he's a guy who, has really been at the forefront of a lot of the modern conspiracy theories. In the 90s, it was like New World Order, this idea that there was about to be a one world government. I mean, we think about the 90s stuff like Waco, that sort of environment of the government really coming to crack down on Americans, and I should say, typically like white Christian Americans, the idea that the Clinton administration was going to crack down on liberties, drag your kids away, stuff like this. And so that's sort of where he starts out.
Throughout history, corrupt individuals in positions of power have used crises, or what is known today as terrorism, as a way to corral populations into accepting a system of more and more control. Ladies and gentlemen,
he was a very big, one of the original 9/11 truthers. And so he had a very popular documentary promoting that. And then particularly in the Obama administration, he starts getting into things like Jade Helm, which is the idea that it was the idea that Barack Obama was going to use the military, specifically in Texas, to like imprison conservatives in Walmarts.
Jade Helm infiltrating police departments, practicing taking over America, interfacing to condition the public, was part of a long-term strategic plan to sell the military on this new unconstitutional mission. That's what this is all about.
Wow, that's very specific. Yes. Okay. So I'm sorry, we're like laughing about this stuff, but okay, he's talking about things like this. And are these theories really popular? I mean, talk to me a little bit more about just the landscape of misinformation generally and how popular these theories are. Did they spread? How influential are they?
Yeah, I mean, in the case of Jade Helm, for example, it was taken seriously enough that the government of Texas like mobilized its own military to keep an eye on the federal military and see if they would really try to imprison Republicans. At its apex, Alex Jones's Infowars show was carried on radio stations across the country.
Like regular radio stations.
Yeah. I mean, well, like
this wasn't just online.
Yeah, like conservative talk radio stations in the same way that other talk radio hosts are.
Right.
I mean, this is a guy who had many millions of YouTube followers before he was banned from that site. The same on other social media networks. I mean, a really influential guy who has amassed tens of millions of dollars. And so, I mean, this is like a guy who was not just able to afford a nice house. I mean, this was a guy who had a ranch, a $2 million house.
How is he making all this money?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of it comes from sales to his fans. And so, for example, he would sell the prototypical Infowars item is a pill.
A pill?
Yeah, a pill, a sort of something called like Brain Force Plus.
Like a supplement or something?
A supplement is exactly, yeah. So he would sell these supplements, for example, that would say, maybe you need tablets because there's the government's putting something in the water. So you need to put these tablets in your water, or you need to take these pills so that, you can counteract the harmful effects of modern living.
Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula, the purest iodine, the missing link, X3, 40% off, Turbo Force, 10-hour clean energy, Turbo Force X3, Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula, and so many other products at InfoWarsStore.com. You support us.
So it sounds like what you're saying is he was making most of his money not from necessarily advertisers or carrier fees from radio stations, but selling swag to his fans, which tells me if he's making all this money, he must have a lot of devoted fans who are willing to buy this stuff.
Exactly. And it plays into I think the sales are directly tied into the sort of the sense of apocalypse that he promotes, because he's
like,
also,
it's not just like a mug. It's like, you need this to survive.
Exactly. So he's selling like food storage or sort of like buckets of food that you can put in your fallout shelter, stuff like this, that's saying like, you need to buy this now because you know what I was talking about on the show 20 minutes ago, like we're going to approach this apocalypse, and so you need to start stockpiling.
So now, Will, I want to turn to the particular conspiracy theory that Alex Jones spread, which has to do with the parents of the Sandy Hook victims. So can you just tell me what the outlines of this case are? You know, how did this end up in court, and where does the story begin?
Well, the conspiracy theories about Sandy Hook start proliferating soon after Adam Lanza kills 20 children and 6 adults in Newtown in 2012.
And the conspiracy theories center on the idea that the shooting was somehow fake or staged to promote gun control. And so the Sandy Hook parents become terrorized by these conspiracy theorists, especially after Alex Jones begins promoting these conspiracy theories. A few years after...
And these are like grieving parents, so now they're dealing with this on top of it.
These are parents who really have had their lives, just absolutely wrecked by these murders. And now on top of that, they have people harassing them who are saying that, your child didn't really die, just these horrible things. And so Alex Jones really latches onto that. And it's also, I should say, it proves very profitable to him. I mean, in one of these lawsuits that came out that on one of these days he was promoting the Sandy Hook ideas, he made $1 million in that day in sales.
So what did the parents do? What was their sort of recourse for this?
Sure. So a few years after the shooting, they file suit in both Texas and Connecticut, two groups of parents, suing Alex Jones and Infowars for defamation. And these cases drag on, often because Alex Jones is kind of drawing them out with his lawyers. And ultimately, in 2022, he gets two really devastating judgments of roughly $1.5 billion combined. And so that, even though Alex Jones has become very wealthy through conspiracy theories, is far more than he can pay.
Okay, so what does that actually mean, though? What did the court land on in terms of the question of defamation, and who will this money be going to?
So the courts ruled that Jones intentionally defamed the families of the victims in the Sandy Hook shooting. A good chunk of that $1.5 billion judgment was made up of damages for the intentional infliction of emotional distress. The first thing to know is that the families, even in the best case scenario, will never receive anything more than a small fraction of that money. Alex Jones and Infowars just have no way of getting $1.5 billion to pay them. Ultimately, this money, whatever amount they can salvage, whether it's through bankruptcy court or lawsuits, will ultimately go to paying the families of the Sandy Hook victims who sued him.
After the break, the uncertain future of Infowars and other conspiracy theorists. We'll be right back. Okay, now that these judgments have happened, where does Alex Jones and Infowars stand? Where do they stand right now?
Right. So in December 2022, Alex Jones and Infowars file for bankruptcy protections. And so they get sort of an immediate protection from the judgments, and then that goes to bankruptcy court where it's sort of like, we're going to sort out how he can pay this. Now, there's no question that he can never pay the full amount. We're talking about maybe he could pay at best tens of millions of dollars, probably not even that. Texas law means he can keep his house, so that's safe. But he has a gun collection, he has the cars, this kind of stuff. So a few weeks ago, all of these legal maneuvers in bankruptcy court come to a head, and they go in front of a judge who has to decide two things: whether to liquidate Alex Jones's personal assets and to whether to liquidate Infowars, the company. And then the judge decides basically immediately to liquidate Alex Jones's personal assets, but not to liquidate Infowars itself. And so effectively, Infowars gets at least a few months more to live. Now, Alex Jones's personal assets include a majority stake in Infowars. So ultimately, Infowars, unless there's some true legal maneuver that we're not expecting, Infowars will shut down eventually. But as a result, Alex Jones is going to be able to retain control of Infowars probably for a few more months at least. But the question is, will it be months? Will it be years that Infowars can keep going? And in that time, the plaintiffs in the Sandy Hook case are concerned he's going to basically loot the company, which is something he was trying for basically as soon as he got these judgments already.
And what was Alex Jones's response to this judgment?
Yeah, I mean, Infowars has treated it very victoriously. That initially they were claiming, the government's coming to shut us down. There was this whole thing where they claimed the government was coming to padlock the doors, which wasn't true. And now, they've claimed that this is a win for them. It is sort of a win. It's sort of a Pyrrhic victory, I guess, because ultimately Infowars will be liquidated. But again, the question is how long. And
what has Alex Jones said about this Sandy Hook conspiracy theory? Is he still holding on to this?
Well, yeah, no, he's backed away from them. Now he says Sandy Hook is real. So in court, he testified that he understood his actions were irresponsible, that it was reckless to believe that it was a hoax. He's clearly trying to sort of mitigate the damage of these lawsuits.
But it sounds like in any event, Infowars' days are numbered, that it's not going to remain, broadcasting. It's not going to remain an influential source of, content for people. And so I actually right now want to step back and look beyond Alex Jones, because it does feel like what's happening to him is this sort of, hello, there are consequences to your actions. Like if you're saying these conspiracy theories that are patently false, you can actually hurt people and you may have to face consequences, or they might be, they might be against the law, or I don't know, there might be some ramification there. So I'm wondering, are there other examples of this, and whether you view this as a turning point or just the bigger movement or state of misinformation when it comes to, can people just say these things without any sort of consequences?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very interesting couple of years in terms of following the conspiracy theory media and the sort of the rise of consequences. In other examples, Fox News and some other conservative cable networks are facing lawsuits from voting machine systems manufacturers who were accused of stealing the 2020 election. Dominion Voting Systems settled their case with Fox News for nearly $800 million. Other conservative networks, including Newsmax, are facing other lawsuits related to these allegations. The Gateway Pundit, which is a massively successful right-wing blog, one of the most popular conservative blogs online, and it plays a huge role in promoting conspiracy theories. It is facing a series of really massive lawsuits, and so Gateway Pundit filed for bankruptcy. Additionally, Dinesh D'Souza, who's a longtime kind of conservative promoter of conspiracy theories, he had a movie that was very successful on the right called 2000 Mules. And the eponymous mules here, the titular mules, are the idea that conservative anti-voting fraud activists had caught all of these ballot mules who were committing voter fraud.
Did this have to do with the 2020 election?
Exactly,
okay.
in 2020. One of the alleged voter fraud committers, or one of the alleged mules, sued and said, I was not involved in voter fraud. And Salem Communications, which is sort of a massive conservative talk radio and media network, which had promoted the documentary as part of their settlement last month as well, they agreed to stop distributing 2000 Mules and essentially admitted that they were wrong about him. And just overall, I mean, there is sort of a moment right now, I think, of the most prominent, the most moneyed promoters of conspiracy theories really facing challenges in the courtroom for something that, a decade ago, I don't think anyone would have expected them to be sued over.
Will, is there an argument to be made, or is this the argument that some of these folks who are being sued are making, that, well, free speech, why are we being sued, or why are we facing these sort of consequences when we're just exploring different ideas and different ways of looking at the world, and this is creating a chilling effect? I'm wondering if this is coming up in your observation and reporting.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, certainly in the case of Alex Jones and Infowars, they made this argument that,
maybe it's not popular to say, but that the First Amendment gives him the right to say that the school shooting was fake.
Also, in the case of Fox News, in the Dominion Voting Systems case, they argued, this is protected First Amendment speech, just commenting on the issue of whether the election was stolen. On the other hand, I think it's interesting. This whole thing kind of sums up a phenomenon that we've seen perhaps in the decade or so of people, who are really non-public individuals, voting machine employees or
poll workers,
grieving parents, poll workers,
grieving parents,
pizza restaurant employees, people who are just sort of very ordinary people who find themselves just like having their lives just obliterated because they were photographed in the wrong place one day, or they had the wrong job that suddenly gets kind of caught up in this right-wing media machine. And so until recently, I think until the past maybe 4 or 5 years, there was not a lot of recourse that people would have to this. And they would just, I guess I have to sell my house and move and maybe change my name.
Wow.
And now we're seeing that sort of the legal system kick in and affirm that, yes, I mean, there are serious consequences for this.
So in aggregate, would you say that some of these examples and the trend line here, is it having any broader influence? Is it causing some of these pundits and other, maybe peddlers of conspiracy theories to think twice before saying these things?
Yeah, I think it has. I mean, I think the biggest promoters of conspiracy theories, and I would say the people with the most to lose. I mean, we think about, Fox News, which is just massive network. Even people like the Gateway Pundit, which is a much smaller fish than Fox News. They have become much more reluctant, I think, to single out individuals, particularly non-public individuals. I mean, they can still say a lot about Hunter Biden, but people like just random poll workers. There's a lot more of sort of promoting a vague sense of a nefarious cabal. I mean,
but they're
I think
now thinking less. Let's not focus so much on individuals.
Yes.
I'm not hearing you say. I mean, you tell me. Is there a recalibration around? Should we even be presenting these theories at all?
Yeah, I mean,
what's the story with misinformation now?
Right. I mean, I don't think there's been a kind of like a moment where these promoters of conspiracy theories have said, "Oh no, what have we done?" I mean, aside from perhaps to their shareholders. And so really there hasn't been a moment, I think, where people have come around. They just, I think, become smarter about it and promote much vaguer ideas about election fraud or about vaccines, these various things, rather than specifically saying, like, this person is to blame.
So if Infowars was to go offline, what does that mean? Especially I'm thinking about the election. What's the significance of that?
I mean, Infowars is a big deal on the right. I mean, in conservative media. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, if Infowars stops broadcasting, that will have an effect. That's a big voice. On the other hand, Alex Jones could go on and relaunch or launches a new company. As far as I understand, it's basically the next day. I mean, if he's able to get money for it. Additionally, we've seen the rise of, thousands of mini Alex Jones. I'm thinking about the QAnon conspiracy theory based around the idea where they believe that the world elites, including the Democratic Party, eat children, abuse them in satanic rituals, and that the good news is that Donald Trump is going to, in one big moment, essentially punish all these people and ship them off to Guantanamo Bay. There are these QAnon radio shows that Trump's lawyer goes on. I mean, these have become sort of just
more mainstreamed in a way.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. They've become mainstream in the GOP in the way that they wouldn't have maybe even 5 years ago.
Well, lots to pay attention to. Thanks, Will, for joining me.
It's never boring. Thanks for having me.
Will Sommer is a media reporter for The Post. I wanted to tell you about a few other stories I'm watching. Today is the 2-year anniversary of the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, the one that struck down Roe v. Wade and eliminated the federal right to illegal abortion.
2 years ago today, the highest court in our land, the Court of Thurgood and RBG, took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the people of America, from the women of America.
That's Vice President Kamala Harris in Maryland today.
Today in America, 1 in 3 women of reproductive age lives in a state with an abortion ban. Many with no exception even for rape or incest. Today, our daughters know fewer rights than their grandmothers. This is a healthcare crisis.
The Biden campaign held 50 events in battleground states to draw attention to abortion rights and just how consequential a president's nominations to the Supreme Court can be. Also, a severe heat wave in Saudi Arabia this month coincided with a massive death toll during Hajj pilgrimage. More than 1,300 people died in June, according to the Saudi health minister. Our colleagues report that the effects of the heat wave were possibly made worse by a lack of services like cooling centers for an influx of visitors without proper permits. Rising global temperatures and a two-tiered system for visitors means pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca could become increasingly risky. That's it for Post Reports. Thanks for listening. Today's show was produced by Peter Bresnan. It was mixed by Sean Carter and edited by Lucy Perkins and Rena Flores. Thanks to Amy Argetsinger and Trinity Webster Bass. I'm Elahe Izadi. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories from the Washington Post.